anybody that has observed Indians and how they run business, particularly in our context, Kenya, you will agree with me, they are intentional about who is next. It's never a big discussion
or
in
who
the
is next?
Indian dynamic on who is next as the CEO, who is next as the operating officer. It's never a big deal. It's actually decided way early. That I remember in a primary school I belonged to in Eldoret, I remember so well, 2 Indian kids, every Saturday when we finish our Saturday lessons, the driver would be there, pick them up in their car, take them not even
To
home,
the shop.
to the shop.
And
And they would get there, they would be the ones handling the change, they'll be ones making sure the receipts are properly written and given. So what was happening was intentional mentorship.
culturing,
And
yeah.
let me shock you, there is one of them that I've met many years after primary school, and he is running what his father was running. I have met him. I'm talking of an experience that I have witnessed by myself. So what is missing in the equation in our African, and if we can go ahead and even say in our black race, is intentional mentorship. Deliberate. That yes, right now I can see you are in high school, but I'm preparing you as my son. You're going to run what I'm running. All these big families with empires fighting in court, I promise you, there was no intentionality.
Do you think CBC should have been introduced to blacks early?
By all means, our educational system should be having a constant overhaul.
Not in the education per se,
Yes.
but the concept.
Yes.
Whereby, look at just what you've described.
Yes.
The Indian.
Yes.
The Indian was after competence.
And that is how you prepare for the next season. That's how you prepare.
Because someni vijana,
yeah, baada ya kusoma,
ongeze pia bidii.
Yes.
Mwisho wa kusoma, utapata kazi nzuri sana. And then you get fired. After that kazi nzuri.
Right. Now notice this. Not only was these communities intentional, notice they are also entrepreneurial.
Industrious.
Let me shock you. Except for the few international universities that we have in the country, most of the Indian kids that grew up in some of our generations or even earlier, as soon as they were done with Form 4, they'd be flown out of the country, trained elsewhere.
Exposure.
Work on a different kind of a system, come back with academic papers that are highly recognized because of where they've gotten them from, whichever the nation, and they come and they enter at a place of management. So the operating mindset that they are working with is not the one we've been raised in. You see, we were raised to think employment. They were being coached to become entrepreneurs.
To come and employ us.
So for an Indian to take over a business is not a big deal, and to push that business to another level where you can find somebody in their 40s or 50s, they're talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions, possibly billions, rightfully earned, built over time. It's not a strange thing because they were intentional. The kind of mindset that was being driven into them was an entrepreneurial, not an employment mindset.
Was it value-based? Because as you look at the African average kid.
Yes.
They are being raised to even steal from their own father.
And that's why this element of conditioning, this element of culture, this thing is what is denying us even to discern seasons correctly. Because some people don't even learn from their predecessors. They walk into the same rat race, the same challenges, and they continue to perpetuate them. You see, and it's not that we're glorifying other communities. We're only just comparing notes and learning.
Or even other faiths.
Or even
because
other
there's
faiths.
another faith that
because
really...
you know, like for instance, the culture of us as Africans was never centered strongly on values that were positioning us for the future, or if I can say the future world. There were values that were positioning us to continue perpetuating the ideals of a community. What I mean is this: never, unless it was intentional. In many of African cultures, education was fought when it came with the missionaries. People are not embracing these white people that have come with education and medicine and all of that. No. It was like, these people have come and they want to change us, and we are not ready for this. They want to dominate us. We don't want that. So there was that kind of a resistance. Now, unless we become intentional that I want to raise this kid, he's got an interest in business as I am in business, and teach him all I know, guide him, expose him to what I'm doing, get his mind picked on a few issues I'm trying to work through, and I tell him, hey, listen what, in the next 10 years, I don't want you to look for a job anywhere. You're coming to work for me. And everything I know, everything I've worked for, I want to hand it over to our concept of success, our concept of raising other leaders, our concept of making somebody be better than you through your mistakes and exposing your life to them. These are not normal things for us in Africa.
And they ought not to be so.
They ought not to be so. Because you see, when you look at the Word of God and you begin to see how God operates, look at Peter. Jesus tells him, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat, but I've prayed for you. Luke 23, 31 to 33. I've prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And after you have been turned, strengthen your brethren. In other words, Peter, all that you have gone through, I'm praying that you'll come through victoriously. And having come through, your assignment will now be to strengthen your brethren. So when you look at God's word, you see time and again, there is the lifting up of people that are not where you're at. There is the empowering of others. There is the opening up of opportunities for others. That's the kind of the biblical culture that we see.
There's a guy who has a dream.
Yes.
I think probably this will be the second part of what we're discussing, and depending on how time allows and stuff.
Right.
This guy, Pharaoh,
yes,
has a dream.
Yes.
Two-faced dream. 7-year period.
Yes.
And you said number 7 is what?
Completeness. Yes, perfection.
Perfection and stuff. And this guy has a dream in Genesis 41.
Right.
And when I meditated upon the statement, that story, it really struck some things home.
Yes.
In terms of the face of life.
Right.
That can probably push anyone to any height.
Yes.
If they understand the seasons. The people who will mismanage this pandemic will honestly have themselves to blame. Because I think the pandemic is a gift. Both to the body of Christ, to professionals, to business people. It has redefined several models on how we do family, how we do our the mountains of influence, religion, commerce and education, entertainment and industry, entertainment and arts. Talk about things of governance and leadership. Talk about business and stuff. And it's really re-engineered our. But when old things happen to new people call that thing new. Because the truth is, there's nothing new.
Under the sun. What has been will be.
What has been
Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9.
And stuff like that. So when you look at Genesis 41, probably you may need to give us the run-through.
Okay. Well, Genesis 41 has got 57 verses.
Not the entire. Just capturing the faces of the dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We can start with verse 14, Genesis 41:14. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon, and he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it, but I've heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. So Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, in my dream I stood on the bank of the river. Suddenly 7 cows came up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and gaunt, such ugliness as I've never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the gaunt and ugly cows ate up the first 7, the fat cows. When they had eaten them up, no one would even have known that they had eaten them up. for they were just as ugly as at the beginning.
Wow.
What a dream.
What a dream.
So I awoke. Then he says, also in my dream, and suddenly 7 heads came up on one stalk, full and good. Then behold, 7 heads, withered, thin, and blight by the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin heads devoured the 7 good heads. So I told this to the magicians, but there was none who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do.
Yes?
Yes. The 7 good cows are 7 years.
7 years.
And the 7 good heads are the 7 years. The dreams are one. And the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I've spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. Indeed, 7 years of great plenty will come throughout all the land of Egypt. But after them, 7 years of famine will arise, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will deplete the land. So the plenty will not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it will be very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass.
Are those 14 years?
Yes, 14 years of 2 major activities.
But the dream is one.
But the dream is one.
Famine
and plenty.
And plenty.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the plenty, season of plenty.
Yes.
What should one do during the season of ease, season of opportunity, seasons of things happening?
So
because that first phase is representing the season of really things are happening.
Yes,
you know,
I mean you have it. You're in the flow.
You're in the flow.
Everything is working out
both
well.
In your ears of of the window that has been, let's call it the window that you've been given.
Yes.
What do you do with that window?
You know, I like Joseph. He has just come out of prison.
Another season.
Another season. He has been called by Pharaoh. I love the things that were happening here when we started in verse 14. Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon.
It's an urgent matter.
Yes. And he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. He shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. These events were happening quickly. Sometimes a season will demand you to move fast. At the end of it, you move fast. By the time
king's business requires haste.
It requires haste. By the time he's coming to meet with Pharaoh, he's not coming there to begin to raise issues of his past season.
Unajua nilipelekwa nini historical injustice.
Exactly, by the way, Pharaoh mnatakana make sure watu huko wako na maji ya kutosha ya kuoga, toilet asifanye vizuri.
Hata unaona vile nimekuja nimenyolewa leo.
By the time he's meeting there, the guy, it's like he's been in preparation for a moment of destiny.
That's a word. He's been
in preparation for a moment of destiny. So by the time he's meeting Pharaoh, he does not even introduce himself. It is Pharaoh who speaks to him because Pharaoh is in a problem. And he has been told the solution was in prison, so he has called him to come out.
So the prison, so the prison is an incubation area.
That's how Joseph took it. But it's not automatic for everybody. So that's how Joseph took it. Now he comes, he's standing before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is the one beginning to speak. And as Pharaoh is speaking, I love Joseph. Joseph immediately is working out his plan for the next season of his life. Because when you look now at verse number 33, this is now what Joseph is now submitting to Pharaoh, which is what Pharaoh should do. And what Pharaoh should do includes also his business plan to secure the future. So this is what he says, verse 33.
Repeat that again.
Yes.
You know,
he is submitting.
This could be the delivering point.
Yes.
Of someone.
Yes. He's delivering the solution to Pharaoh, but inside of it, he has worked out his own business plan for the next season of his life.
So people really don't care how much you talk about the problem. They are not addicted to the problem.
No.
They are after the solution.
Solution providers are what the world is looking for.
So the season of new beginnings has got to have a fabric
of solution. You're speaking, sir. What brings a change of season in anybody's life, number one,
it's not the prison where you're coming from.
It's not the prison you're coming from. No. It is the solution you're going to offer to somebody who is also in a prison of their own.
You want to deploy the solution.
See, Joseph was in a prison that was physical. Pharaoh was in a prison that was mental. He says, I called all the magicians. Nobody could interpret it for me. The man is in prison in his mind.
And Pharaoh, to become a Pharaoh, qualification number one, you must be man,
and half spirit.
Half spirit.
Yes, deity of some sort.
A deity of some sort.
According to the Egyptian cultures of that time. So, this man is coming. Ooh, there's something here I'm going to say. This one I got it from one of our friends. My friend said this. She said, it was Joseph's dream that put him into prison.
And it's a dream.
But Pharaoh's nightmare
brought him out of the prison.
I don't know who needs to have a nightmare around you for you to come out of prison. But it's an interesting interplay of things. One is stepping out of the prison to help another one in a mental prison. One is stepping out of a season of obscurity into a season of exposure and significance. Now, this
a new beginning requires a solution.
It requires a solution. You've got to deliver a solution. Because this is the thing. When you change a season for someone, your season changes.
And especially the caliber.
Now, that's the bullet. That's the bullet. Because if you can solve a problem for a pharaoh,
you can get a pharaoh's reward.
Exactly. So the size of problem you solve determines the size of reward that comes.
So all the employees
must
are employed to solve a problem.
At a certain level.
So the degree to which you solve that problem, the bigger the problem,
the bigger the rewards and the beautiful the season that you'll walk into. Now, this is what the man says. This is Joseph, verse 33, Genesis 41. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt.
Discerning?
Let Pharaoh do this.
Discerning?
A discerning and wise man and set him. Pharaoh to set him.
So this guy had the faculties of sight.
Yeah, the faculties of sight.
Wisdom.
Yes.
Discernment.
Exactly.
Insight.
Understanding.
Revelation. Understanding.
He had it.
He had it.
That's why he could decode the dream. He didn't even say, let me go and pray about it. No, he just listened, he knew. In the manual I operate with, cows represent years.
The spirituality of the solution determines the longevity.
Now you've said it. Because you see, for change to be permanent, it must be spiritual.
Absolutely.
It must be spiritual.
It cannot be otherwise.
It cannot be otherwise. Now, he says, now therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Now he's on phase 2. Phase 1 was to interpret the dream. He has finished. Now he's on phase 2, where now the business plan is coming in. Now the bargain.
Yeah.
Now notice what he says in verse 34. Let Pharaoh do this. So the man who was in prison is now commanding the affairs to happen in the office of power.
And he has caged the Pharaoh.
He says, let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years.
Now, that's the solution.
That's the solution. Now, he's into details now.
Yes. Create a reservoir.
Yes. And he says, we are looking for 1/5. Not everything, just 1/5. Yes. Of the entire produce, yes. Which is 20% actually.
20%.
20%. That's 1/5 of 100.
So when you tell someone even 10%, they run mad. And it's only 10% you're asking, and it's not even his.
My brother.
Anyway, robbery is real.
Now, verse 35, he says, and let them gather. Now, it's not him who is gathering. He says, no, you select a man who is wise and discerning, then get other officers.
Now, this is leadership.
This is now leadership. Delegation in place. See, that's why I said he's providing solution, but his business plan as well is running on it. So now this is negotiating in the corridor of power. He says, and let them gather all the food of those good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh and let them keep food in the cities.
In the cities?
In the cities. Then that food shall be as a reserve for the land for the 7 years of famine which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land may not perish during the famine. He concludes his plan and solution by factoring in the desire of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the leader of the land. He doesn't want the land to perish. Now he tells him, now when you do this, the land is not going to perish.
I have a question.
No. Look at verse 37. Before we come to that.
This is very sweet. I'm telling you.
I love 37.
The guy is in a foreign land.
Yes. Yes.
The foreign land does not subscribe to the wisdom of Jehovah.
No, it does not.
It's not operating under the substratum
of
the philosophies of God.
No.
But it is highly spiritual environment.
Yes.
That requires the light of the gospel.
You see, the reality is this. Pharaoh was in darkness because of his dream. He didn't even know God was speaking to him.
Yet it was God creating a pathway.
Now God was creating a bigger dream for Joseph's small dream to ride on to become a reality. So this is how God uses the people that don't know him to make a way for the people that know him.
So when people are shouting here, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous,
you must begin to develop what you may call the Joseph faculties of handling gigantic problems. Because God will provide the opportunity, but if you're underprepared, then you'll miss it.
So the under-preparation
is what is costing people from entering seasons ordained by God.
And you claim it. Because in prayer, shouting about it, and you're not preparing for it.
You see, capacity is what underscores the legitimacy
we'll
of the season.
come to that. There's something about capacity. We'll talk about it.
Yes. Now we're coming to verse 37. Look at the reaction.
Yeah.
So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Notice this, not the interpretation of the dream.
It's no longer
but the advice. In other words, Mr. President, I have listened to your problem. So your problem is, this is the meaning of what you're trying to figure out. Now let me help you. With what I've told you to be the meaning, this is what you ought to do. You see, this is the thing. You approach a season with a futuristic mindset. Joseph interpreted a dream of last night, but included a solution that was futuristic to cover the next 14 years. So his entry into the season is what we were discussing earlier on. He comes with the end in mind. He has the end game in mind.
He's not now thinking about freedom.
He did not just
because he's been a prisoner. He's not thinking freedom.
No. He has gone beyond freedom. He is thinking of dominion. So to be in charge.
Honestly speaking, the people who are in this prison who are listening to reggae.
Yes.
They were listening to reggae
by Lucky Dube.
I am a prisoner. I'm a prisoner and stuff.
Yes.
Before long, they want freedom.
Right.
Or they were listening to Pak Shakur. Before long, they have an issue with authority. They just want, they are gangsters all of a sudden.
Yes, they must always overpass any form of limitation.
Yeah. Before long, they were listening to Rose Muhando. And they're coming from that environment.
Right.
What was Joseph doing when he was in prison?
When you look at the story of Joseph in prison, very interesting.
We'll go back to the dream.
Yes.
But you know what struck my mind is he was catapulted.
Yes.
What was he doing that energized his move?
When you look at Joseph in prison, number one, he continued to do what he was doing in Potiphar's house. He found favor with the prison warden, and he was put in charge of the prisoners. So he was administrating. He was making sure whoever is supposed to work on this corridor is working on it. Yeah. Whoever is supposed to be taking care of the ablution block is working on it. Whoever is supposed to make sure the food delivery and presentation he was doing all of that.
Leadership, management.
He continued working on his gift. Because in Potiphar's house, he was administrating. He was a houseboy. Weka meza vizuri, pangusa. Madam akikuja, anataka meza safi. Curtain zimenyoroka. Nguo zimefuliwa. He was doing his administration. So by the time he's coming into prison, he continues working on his gift.
So the internship was upgrading.
It was upgrading. And the other thing is this. God brought people to Joseph that began to culture him for State House protocol. The butler.
The
baker. These were people exposed to the protocol of State House. So while they were hanging around and making stories, this is my preacher's imagination. These guys were saying, by the way, when I used to work in State House, there was this time, mkate iko iva poa, chapo iko iva poa. Wageni walikuwa wamekuja, we had a delegation that had come. You see? That is what they were having as conversations. Now, what was this doing to Joseph? Joseph was beginning to understand there is a culture when you come before dignitaries.
Is this a company issue? Association?
You see, hey, a man's gift will make room for him and bring him into the presence of great men. So while he's working on his gift, these people have come into a confined place, but to give him exposure from the experiences.
Do you see a man diligent?
It is work. This man will stand before kings. And no wonder by the time he's getting to Pharaoh, the man already knew when you come to the presence of great people, you don't begin talking your gibberish, you be quiet and let dignitaries speak.
So there's the refining.
There was a refining process while the guy was in prison. Both of what he carried inside of him, as well as also the exposure of these people that he interpreted the dreams for.
Iron was sharpening.
Iron was sharpening. And no wonder by the time there was such a disaster, there was this national problem. The Pharaoh has had a dream. Nobody can interpret it. All the magicians are stuck. Is when this guy that was reinstituted into his job, he said, I remember, there was a Hebrew boy. He actually told me something and it has secured my job up to now.
So the corona thing made Kenyans kula, kulala, kulalamika.
Now, sad to say, if that's all you did with that season, too sad. But if you continued working on your gift, you found exposure, much as you were confined, because that's what corona did. It put us into a confinement, stay at home.
Now
Don't
work on these gifts, work on this,
you should
work
have
on
been
this,
working
work
on
on
your
this,
gift.
work on
Yes.
this.
You should have been looking for exposure by connecting with the people. And thank God for a day and time and technology. Connect with them even online. Begin to refine your gift for where you are going. And by the time the gentleman is coming in, what impressed Pharaoh was not how he was shaved, the clothes he had put on, was not even his interpretation of the dream, but the advice that he gave, the solution that he brought.
Truth be told,
Yes.
we don't know the effect and the longevity of the pandemic.
No.
But the preparation into the future determines the sustainability and relevance that you're going to have.
You know, my brother, what you have said, that's the thing. How can I take care of this moment to secure longevity of my idea or my dream or what is in me for what is coming? Because let me give you an example. Because of this COVID pandemic, do you know there are certain prices of things that dropped because there was not much interest?
Say that again.
There are certain things whose prices dropped because there was not much interest in
the
them.
demand.
The demand wasn't there. It dropped, boom, and the supply was available. Haven't you noticed, for instance, in Kenya, how many companies are pushing to sell land at very low prices? Because the demand is not there. The demand is not there. So they're telling you, no, you can come, deposit even 20,000 and pay for the next 2 years. Or it's because when the pandemic hit, their businesses were affected and they discovered, yes, this area is potential, it's nice, but we can't sell prices up here. We've got to come down so that at least we can get some business to sustain us as a company.
The inanimate became costly.
Now you're talking. Now you're talking. And what will secure that longevity is that refining, preparation, and capturing the opportunities that have been presented to you. Because when this gentleman was called, all he simply did, as soon as Pharaoh told him, I've heard it has been said of you, the only thing that came out of his mouth, number one, is that he said to Pharaoh, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. So it tells you the first thing that was important to Joseph coming into this new season, number one, was God.
In the beginning.
Yes. The first principle of life. In the beginning, God. First statement in the Bible. In the beginning, God. So you're stepping out of an old season, coming to a new season. The first starting point is God. So Pharaoh begins to say the dream. So while the man is saying his dream, the man is just decoding. He knows, no, these two dreams are just one and the same thing. They have come to because God has established He's going to do it.
In this dream,
yes.
Do opportunities manifest in an area of vulnerability?
Do opportunities
manifest
yeah.
in the area of vulnerability,
yes.
especially to the prepared?
Yes.
Look at how vulnerable the Pharaoh is.
Listen, verse number 38. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one?
Is it verse 39?
As this, 38.
39 is
yes.
amazing.
Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? But by the time the man is finished with his presentation, the thing that came out of Pharaoh was there must be something spiritual about this Hebrew prisoner. Yeah. You shaved him, put clothes on him, brought him here. There's something spiritual about him. Now, notice verse 39 that you're saying. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you.
Discernment, wisdom.
Once again, come into the picture.
And to your faith.
Make every effort to add virtue, and to virtue, knowledge. So if your faith is not at a place of intentional improvement, then you may not be positioned to capture such a destiny moment. You see, intentionality is the key, my brother. It is the key. I was listening to one gentleman from Nigeria. He's a pastor and a businessman. His name is Emmanuel Olumide.
I've read some of his books. Have you read The School of Money?
My brother, that's not even a book to be read and then close the way we do a novel. No, that's a book to keep as an encyclopedia.
It's full of wisdom.
I was listening to him during the pandemic. Do you know what he was telling people? He was telling people, buy land. He said, look at yourselves now. You're all in houses. And that's what makes real estate to be real. Go for land. Invest in this. And he was running online courses. He was training people, having even free sessions where he's talking to people and all of that. And that's what you're talking about, wisdom and discernment. And that's what ushers you to handle the next season of your life in a grand style.
As we just slow down to wind it for tonight.
Right.
What do you do with the 7 years of constraint, 7 years of famine, the years of struggle, the years of challenge?
You know, it's in the words of Joseph to Pharaoh. He said, let Pharaoh do this. This is Genesis 41:34. Let Pharaoh do this. That's telling him, you have the ability of the power. So I'm just advising you that Pharaoh, you should do this. Let him appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years.
So this during plenty,
yes.
This is now the prescription.
This is the prescription. Don't stay in the plenty and think it will be plenty all through. That's the application. Don't think just because you've got a job, just because your business is booming, just because you're having opportunities, you are providing and supplying and all. Don't you think it shall be so for the rest of your life. Because remember, God said, while the earth endures, seed time and harvest time, cold and heat, winter and summer, day and night. So understand the nature
of the seasons.
They are cyclical. So while you are at the top and you're enjoying, please take free advice. Make preparations for another season that could come that may not have all the plenty, all the opportunities, all the highs and all the things that you enjoyed. And that's where a lot of people found themselves off guard. Because it simply meant when everything was moving on well, world as we knew it before COVID, there are people who never had provisions and plans for a time that could come. Not necessarily 2020, but a time that could just come and they discover, you know what?
I've been pushed into the peripheries of oblivion.
Exactly. But notice what sustained Joseph while he was in prison. He kept working on his gift. And number 2, he stayed connected to people that were from where he was destined to go. Yes, he was destined to go into the State House, and then he met with people from the State House.